Hi, musitrature recaps here. Today I'm going to explain a movie called Love and Honor. Shinnojo Mimura is a low-ranking samurai who resides with his beloved wife, Kayo. During breakfast, Shinojo discusses his role as a food taster for a feudal lord and expresses his dissatisfaction, deeming it meaningless. Kayo, however, fails to comprehend his discontent as he works in a prestigious household and interacts with a wealthy feudal lord. In a moment of frustration, Shinojo berates Kayo for her lack of understanding about his occupation. In reality, as a taster, Shinojo and his fellow colleagues sit in a dimly lit room near the kitchen, sampling dishes prepared by the chefs. They remain removed from the feudal lord's presence and lack any opportunity to improve their earnings. Later, Shinojo heads to work, where he samples the lord's lunch. Old man Sakanoshi Katuji supervises the tasters to ensure they sample every dish and queries their reactions. Once they confirm the food's safety, the servants deliver it to the feudal lord. Upon returning home, Shinojo resumes discussing his job and contemplates resigning. He nurtures a dream of establishing a fencing school for young boys, where he plans to teach swordsmanship. His approach would be tailored to each student, crafting personalized lessons. However, Kayo doesn't share his aspiration, pointing out that his current employment provides a stable income, ensuring their comfortable lifestyle. The following day, Shinojo returns to work and samples a special clam dish. After deeming the food safe, the tasters permit it to be taken to the feudal lord for his meal. Shortly afterward, Shinojo's health takes a sharp decline, and he loses consciousness due to poisoning. Recognizing that one of the cooks may have intended to poison the lord, Higuchi rushes to intervene and implores the highly esteemed master to refrain from consuming the food. Suspecting the culprit is within the castle, the head of security orders the gates to be locked to prevent anyone from leaving. The investigation swiftly concludes, and Toya Shimada updates the workers, who are confined to a separate room, on the findings. It emerges that the poisoning was accidental, resulting from an unfortunate choice of food. The mollusk, consumed out of season, released poison that proved as dangerous as pufferfish. Improper preparation could be life-threatening. Hearing this, one of the tasters expresses concern for Shinojo and inquires about his colleague's well-being. Though Shinojo's life is not at risk, he battles fever and remains unconscious. Old Higuchi comprehends his mistake and the potential consequences of his oversight, where the feudal lord's life could have been claimed. Confronting this reality, Higuchi prays and performs harakiri, surrendering his soul to God. The next morning, Shinojo is returned home under the care of Kayo. A visiting doctor provides guidance to the couple, advising Kayo on properly administering medication to her husband. After a couple of days, Shinojo receives a visit from his aunt, Ine Hitano. Though the woman tends to be overly talkative and unpleasant, she genuinely cares about the samurai's well-being and leaves some money for Kayo. Once the aunt departs, it becomes clear that Shinojo has regained consciousness. Filled with relief at her husband's recovery, Kayo, along with their family servants, sets out to prepare a celebratory dinner. However, Shinojo awakens to a new reality and realizes that the poisoning has left him with significant consequences, nearly complete blindness. As evening falls, Kayo engages with the servants and notices Shinojo's peculiar gaze. During dinner, she observes his awkwardness and comprehends that he is struggling with blindness, finding it challenging to differentiate between light and darkness. The doctor makes another visit and provides reassurance, suggesting that Shinojo's condition might be temporary, akin to temporary blindness in chickens, and that his vision will likely return. As the doctor leaves, he speaks privately with Kayo and confesses the truth. Unfortunately, such reactions from consuming shellfish are sometimes incurable. She must come to terms with this reality and prepare to care for her blind husband. In the evening, Shinojo takes his medication and inquires if the firefly season has begun. Kayo sees the fireflies outside through the open door but hesitates to share this with her husband, fearing to deepen his despondency. Aware of the medicine's limitations, Kayo remains determined and visits a stone shrine to offer 100 prayers, seeking divine assistance. Upon her return, she encounters the head of the feudal guard, Shimada, for whom her husband works. Shimada is well informed about Shinnojo's situation and empathizes with Kayo, remembering her from their school days. He extends his willingness to assist and assures her that he will do everything in his power to ensure her well-being. After returning home, Kayo discovers that Takuhei has unwisely informed Shinnojo about the perceived incurability of his vision problem. Trying to console her husband, Kayo confesses that her intention was not to upset him, but this only wounds Shinnojo's pride, as he despises receiving pity. During the night, Shinnojo contemplates suicide through harakiri and searches for his sword. However, Takuhei has hidden the sword as per Kayo's instructions. Despite Shinnojo's outbursts of anger, Kayo remains steadfast in comforting and supporting him. Shinnojo's sense of honor prevents him from seeking charity, but the depth of Kayo's love compels him to reconcile with his new reality. The following morning, clan members convene to address the samurai's predicament and brainstorm solutions. They are willing to provide financial assistance, but not indefinitely. Upon learning that Kayo has a connection with the head of the feudal guard, Uncle Shinnojo urges her to meet with Shimada and ask for his help. Given her connections, it's likely that she can secure a lifetime salary for Shinnojo, effectively concluding the meeting. Upon returning home, Kayo informs her husband about the clan representatives gathering and promises to prepare his favorite dish of sweet potatoes. A few days later, a messenger from the feudal lord arrives, announcing that Shinnojo's salary will remain unchanged for life. Furthermore, they don't need to vacate their house, as the feudal lord has ensured their continued residency and granted them various privileges. Finally accepting his blindness, Shinnojo apologizes to his wife and servant for his prior behavior. He's willing to learn how to manage the household and assist Kayo, as long as pity isn't part of the equation. Shinnojo also asks Takuhei to return his sword, as he has abandoned the idea of taking his own life. In the morning, the food taster heads to the feudal lord's residence to personally convey his gratitude. His fellow colleagues empathize with Shinnojo's situation and inquire about his condition, recognizing that such an event could befall any of them. Soon, the feudal lord emerges in the garden, but he inadvertently overlooks the scheduled meeting with Shinnojo, passing by without acknowledging him. Upon returning home, the samurai notices his wife's absence and consults Takuhei to ascertain her whereabouts. Lately, Kayo has been frequenting the temple for prayer, and her delay might be attributed to that. In the meantime, Shinnojo's aunt pays him a visit along with her child. While the young boy engages in fencing with the aged servant, Ine Hatano divulges to the samurai that her husband spotted Kayo in the company of another man. Skeptical of these rumors, Shinnojo remains wary, but his aunt persists, convinced that his wife might be unfaithful. Frustrated, Shinnojo angrily dismisses Ine. Shortly after, Kayo returns home and prepares a meal for her husband, who remains silent because he cannot independently verify the aunt's claims. The following morning, Kayo departs the house, with Takuhei discreetly following her on Shinnojo's instructions. The elderly man observes as Kayo makes her way to the cemetery, offering flowers at her parents' grave and engaging in conversation with the priest. These actions appear innocuous, until the moment when Kayo proceeds to a tea garden. There, Takuhei also notices the head of the security service, who has arrived to meet Shinnojo's wife. After a few hours, Kayo arrives back home, having noticed that Takuhei was trailing her. She decides to have a private conversation with the servant. Recognizing that involvement in their family affairs can lead to disputes, the elderly man is willing to lie to Shinnojo and claim he saw nothing. Kayo realizes that this course of action is wrong and commits to speaking to her husband, intending to reveal the betrayal. But before that, she confides in the servant, sharing her inner turmoil and disclosing her thoughts of self-harm. She reveals that she was manipulated and degraded by the head of security, driven by her conviction that she was acting for the betterment of her husband's interests. In the evening, Kayo musters the courage to confess everything to her husband, disclosing the identity of her lover. She recounts the story of her encounter with Shimada, initiated by the clan council's task to resolve the salary matter. Initially impressed by his kindness and attentiveness, she soon realized that it was a facade, as he shamelessly exploited her vulnerability and coerced her, emphasizing that nothing comes without a price. The day following that incident, a messenger informed them of the lifetime salary granted to the blind taster. Upon concluding her tale, Kayo gazes into her husband's eyes, and his anguished expression alarms her. She pleads for forgiveness, yet Shinojo, unable to overlook the betrayal of his sole confidant, reacts with heartbreak and rage. He forcibly expels his wife from their home and compels Takuhei to assist her departure immediately. The following morning, the samurai retrieves a wooden sword and steps out into the yard to commence his training. Hindered by his limited spatial orientation, he commits numerous errors, resulting in his stumbling to the ground. Driven by an unwavering resolve to restore his desecrated honor as a samurai and to redeem the trust he lost with his wife, Shinojo extends an invitation to a seasoned swordsman, Kaibe, to visit him. He implores Kaibe to teach him the art of blind swordfighting. Focusing solely on his inner determination, the samurai remarkably grapples with the task, effectively fending off his imaginary adversary. Kaibe, however, detects a deeper purpose behind Shinojo's newfound determination and seeks to uncover the motivations behind his actions. The samurai confides in Kaibe, admitting his intent to challenge the head of the feudal guard to a duel, which shocks the swordsman. Kaibe understands the prowess of Shimada, who is renowned for his mastery of bladed weapons and enjoys an esteemed status. The challenge that lies ahead is undoubtedly formidable, and Shinojo acknowledges the considerable journey of learning he must undertake. After some time, two fellow tasters pay a visit to a former colleague, inquiring about his well-being. Politely declining the offer of dinner, they engage in a conversation about the feudal lord's nobility. It becomes evident that the head of security exploited and deceived Shinojo's naive loyalty. He orchestrated the granting of the lifetime salary without any genuine interaction with the esteemed gentleman. The feudal lord expresses genuine gratitude towards Shinojo, recognizing the risk he undertook not just for himself, but for the lord's safety as well. Disillusioned by the realization that Shimada is not only malicious but also deceitful, the samurai summons his loyal servant, Takuhei. He tasks him with a significant mission, to personally challenge Shimada to a duel, conveying his intent to face him in combat. Complying with his master's wishes, Takuhei heads to Shimada's residence and invites him to the stable for an imminent samurai showdown. The head of security is taken aback by the audacity of the blind samurai's challenge. He acknowledges that Shinojo possesses unparalleled swordsmanship in the city, accompanied by his esteemed status. Despite his reservations, Shimada accepts the invitation, promising to arrive punctually for the impending duel. In the evening, Shinojo extends his apologies to the elderly servant for his earlier rudeness and deeply regrets his actions that led to his wife's departure. The following day, Takuhei assists the master as they make their way to the stable. Knowing that Shinojo is visually impaired, the servant guides him through the surroundings and departs when Shimada arrives at the designated meeting spot. The head of the feudal guard displays arrogance toward the blind samurai, underestimating him. However, he soon realizes his misjudgment as Shinojo adeptly senses his opponent's movements. At a certain point, the wind's noise disorients Shinojo, providing an opportunity for his adversary to conceal himself and climb onto the shed's roof. Employing a diversion, Shimada throws his sword sheath in one direction and launches an attack from another. Yet, the blind samurai is prepared for this maneuver and emerges victorious, incapacitating Shimada and severing his arm. Takuhei offers to finish off the defeated foe, but Shinojo opts against it, as he believes he has already avenged his wife's dishonoring. A couple of days later, his taster comrade informs the blind samurai that Shimada could not bear the shame and committed harakiri. Upon discovering that one of the caged birds has passed away, Shinojo and his servant give it a proper burial in the garden. Recognizing his master's discontent with the subpar meals, Takuhei proposes hiring a skilled cook. During their evening meal, Shinojo tastes the food and identifies it as his wife's cooking. He invites her to his chamber and sincerely asks for her forgiveness, subsequently welcoming Kayo back into their home. The innocent ruse orchestrated by Takuhei to reunite the couple comes to light, yet no one harbors any resentment toward him. With the family united once again, the master requests the purchase of a new birdcage and birds, symbolizing their restored happiness. And here the movie ends. Thank you for watching.